Let's start the video with a small note. That is, when there is a change or correction to what is presented in this video, we will update it in the description. So please keep checking the description as well before you proceed to the video so that you will know what are the latest changes. Okay, now let's move on. Welcome to TestTube, the knowledge feast. In this channel, we create the content that educate others. The mission is basically to gather like-minded people of different platforms and create variety of content at one place. So, if you are also want to be a part of it from any corner in the world, please drop an email to sharetesttube@gmail.com. Welcome to REST API Automation using Postman series. And in the current episode, we are going to discuss about integrating multiple API requests in Postman. Okay, in the previous section, we have automated this particular test case, which is test case number 5. And there we have automated these APIs, which is get users type of variables and get users parameterization. So also we discussed the different types of variables in the previous session, like environment variable, global variable, local variable, and also collection level variable. And we have discussed briefly about the parameterization concept, and parameterization concept is related to variables, however. So we have discussed the types of variables also. So this test case has covered all of these topics. So I'm marking it as green because we have completed this. So these are the test cases automated already, and these are the concepts we have learned from the previous sessions. Now we are going to automate this particular test case, and this particular test case talks about this test case verifies that register user API is run successfully. It's not just running the yeah, it is about running the successfully. So now we are going to automate this particular test case. And while automating this particular test case, we are going to cover the topic called integration of APIs. So like I said, we are not just learning the topics, we are actually in the process of automating certain test cases which are common for any project. In the process of executing them, we are going to automate the test cases, and that automation is covering various topics which we wanted to discuss, and thus this is how we are learning the automation. So this is the best way to learn automation. So it explains the reasoning behind why you are automating and what is the purpose of automating, right? So now let's automate this particular test case. So before we automate this test case, if you wanted to have a quick check of the previously automated test cases and the topics, you just go to my website and go to the playlist and click on the REST API automation using Postman playlist. And here you will find the list of topics which we have discussed. So you can run all the playlists so that you can learn one by one. So alternatively, you can also visit my blog, which is 4verstyles.blogspot.com. Here you will find a wide variety of topics with respect to each tool of automation. And for Postman, you can click on this particular tab. For interview questions, you can click on this particular tab and you can click the relevant links which you wanted to see. And also you can follow me by clicking on, okay, let it load, by clicking on follow button over here, so that you will know whenever I post a new topic, right? Okay, now let's go back to the test cases. Okay, so now we are talking about automating this particular test case, right? This is about register API. Now let's go to the Postman tool. Okay, so this is the API register user API, and it is a post request, right? So this is a post request. The method type is post, and this is the URL URI of that particular API request. Now you can see the body. The body is consisting of an email and just the password. So that's all. The header parameters are already as they were. So I'm not talking about these topics again. So this is pretty simple post request. So just two parameters. And now I click on the send button. Okay. It shows it's a bad request, right? Now let's see the response. It says, note, only defined users succeed registration. It says the user, which is sharetesttube at gmail.com, it's not a valid user. So only the defined users will be um, giving you a result of successful registration, right? So how do you know that you're using a valid user, right? So this is not a valid user. Then definitely, which means that you have to have a list of email IDs which are going to work, right? So this is giving rise to a situation wherein you should have a list of email IDs which you can work, right? So now let us examine another API. Here I have another API called get users API, and I named it as get users collect response to a variable. So I'll explain what this is. So here, when we are trying to automate the registration API, you found a problem, and we are searching for a solution to that problem, which resulted in covering a different topic, wherein we are talking about using an email ID, and we are going to explore a way how do you get a valid user, right? This is get users API, so I ran it. This is the same get users API which is discussed in many other topics, so I'm just running it. And the response to this particular API is giving me 1 minute, let me just keep it on. So okay, so the response, as you can see here, is giving me uh, different email IDs also, right? You can see these seems to be pretty valid users, right? Because we are all using this repository of the API. So, and it belongs to the same repository, even the post registered user also. That means these email IDs which I am getting from this API, they are the valid users, right? So now we understand where to get the valid user, email IDs from, right? So now, how do I use these email IDs in my register user request? So it is simple. You just copy it and you just keep it over here. Like, okay, let me just copy this and let me keep it over here. And let me run that. And here you can see it is a success response because it's a valid user. That's why the registration is also successful, right? So now you got it. So um, you have to run this API first and then collect this email and give that email ID over here, and then you can register the particular valid user. Got it, right? But this is all manual, what you have done. So if you have to automate it, what you have to do is you have to automate this particular parameter. So, and also you have to automate that this value for this parameter, whichever you are going to put in over here, it is coming from this API, right? So that's why what we have to do is we have to collect the email ID into a variable, and you have to use that variable over in the post request. So that is what it is, and which means obviously that these are these two APIs are integrated, right? Because there is a connection. So email ID is the connection between these two APIs. This API is integrated to a value which is coming from this particular API, right? Okay, now, so first let us collect this email ID into a variable. So let us go to the test and write some code which is going to collect the variables for, I mean, the value into the variables for us, right? And in the previous session itself, we have discussed about local variables, global, environmental, and collection level variables, right? So which variable is what I'm going to use is now the question, right? So if I use local variables, for example, if var tot is a variable, so this is the script which is written for the previous test case. I'm not going to explain it again. And this is printing the tot variable and em variable, and this is going to appear in the console log, right? But the scope of this variable is going to be within this API itself. So you can't use tot uh, and sorry, not tot. For example, is email ID there? Okay, EM. EM is the variable which is actually collecting the email. So you can actually use this variable because it is carrying the email ID, right? But that's not going to work because EM scope is local to this particular API. So it will die when the moment it has reached out of the particular API, right? So if you use em variable over here, it may not, it may not, it is not going to replace the em variable value with an email id because the scope is dying the moment when you are executing this particular API. So you can't definitely use the local variable. So the other options are you have to use the environment variables or global variables or collection variables. Now let's see the environment variables. So here already I have configured two um, variables, which is environment email and global email address. So let me just delete these so that you know that these are working. So these are empty for now, right? You can see the local, sorry, environment variable and global variable are empty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect this email address into my um, environment variable. Okay, so for that, again we have to call the pm object. So pm dot, and we have to call the set method, and we are talking about variables, right? So let us talk about environment variables. So we can call this as pm dot, sorry, it is the other way around, pm dot environment dot set, which is written already over here. So let me save the time. So if you wanted to invoke an environment variable pm.environment.set and give the variable name, which is envi underscore email, and give the value. The value is nothing but again I am passing the value which I have collected in the local variable over here. Instead you can okay, you can directly write even this also, which is jobject.data dot. Okay, so you got it, I hope. So I am keeping the value em value into my environment variables. Similarly, if you want to do it globally, you have to call pm.globals dot set, against the same syntax, which is the variable name and the value which you wanted to keep. Similarly, for collection level variables, collection variables dot set. So it's all same. Now I'm going to use in this case the environment variable. So I have added this code, and this means when I run this particular API, my environment envi underscore email variable is going to set with the value which is present in the em, and em is collecting the 0th node of data email address, which is the first one, I guess, probably, right, which should be George. So this email ID is going to be collected in EM, and that is the same email ID that is stored in the global, sorry, environment variable. So now let me run this particular API. So I ran it, it is success. Now let's go and see the environment variable. So yeah, that is correct. It has captured George dot bluth at request dot in, the email ID. So now here we have successfully collected the variable, so the email into the environment variable. Now I am going to call the environment variable over here in the post request. That's all. So let me replace this one with the variable, and how we are going to do is call the curly braces and call the variable, which is env underscore email, right? That's all. So now this is parameterized again, right? So this is nothing but parameterization. You are using a variable and you're passing different values to the variables based on different test cases and based on the different runs. So which means again the parameterization. So here you have parameterized the API and you have integrated it with another API. So now this is the integration run. So now let us see. So it must be a valid user ID, which is what it is getting from there. So it should return 200 again. So let me run it. Yes, it is 200. And now let us validate what is passed inside, whether it has passed the email ID, which is George or not. So this is the get users run result. It has collected email ID is it was printing in the console, right, in the previous API. So this is collected, and let us see the body of the post. It should be george.bluth or not. So in the post request, go to the request body, and yes, see env underscore email has the value which is george.bluth at request.in email ID. So which means that the integration is successful and also the API is successful. So here you don't have to manually keep changing the API. It's just that you have to run these APIs together automatically. And when it is a part of the collection, so when you run the collection, uh, all the APIs inside the collection will run automatically, and there is no manual intervention. So you got it. So this is how we automate this particular test case, and we have learned the concept of API automation. Sorry, integration of APIs, right? So let me mark this particular test case to green. Right. So in this session, we have discussed integration of APIs, and that is all for today. Please visit this blog 4versatiles.blogspot.com for more videos and on the different topics, and also the playlist of the particular YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you in the next session.
Thank you for watching the video. For more videos like this, do subscribe to the channel and share it to your friends. You can also visit the playlist in the channel, and those who like to read the content can visit the blog 4verstales.blogspot.com. And for any queries or you want to join us, drop an email to sharetesttube@gmail.com. Bye for now. Stay tuned for more content.